Jerry John Rawlings came back to politics again. He came and overthrew Dr. Hillary Man's government. His coming was full of hope. Everybody had confidence in Jerry John Rawlings. He was a man of action. He preached morality to the people. Everybody expecting something great from Jerry John Rawlings. And so his second coming, although it was surprise to everybody, but he was equally welcome. Hillary Man was highly democratic. The government was democratic, but it has to come down. Over here, we are not going to talk much about the political aspect, whether the killing of some people and all. That falls within certain areas of discussion. It could also be done by other people, or it could be done later time. What we are much concerned is the economy. Is there any hope in Jerry John Rawlings that the economy will be revitalized? There was much hope in this guy. So when he came, he made the first attempt to make sure Ghana has the funds to do things for itself. He encouraged the university students and the other higher institutions to be patriotic. And to be patriotic, he asked them to go and evacuate the cocoa. Cocoa evacuation had been denied by Dr. Hillary Man for some reasons nobody knows, but we will see what happens later. So Jerry John Rawlings encouraged the students to go in for the cocoa. We have to be patriotic. Upon this, I was one of them. We went to Commander sugarcane plantation to cut sugarcane. And then from there, we went to Fusu district to evacuate the cocoa. The cocoa was evacuated. But the problem was, when the cocoa had been evacuated, the world price of cocoa from 1980 to 1982 dropped 50%. That is the game of the free market economy. When there is too much supply, eventually the price will fall. So Jerry John Rawlings moved the students to evacuate the cocoa, but eventually the cocoa price fell. And that became a big loss to Ghana. Which means Dr. Hillary Man did not evacuate the cocoa because there was no international price set for cocoa. If it is so, then you gotta wait. But Jerry John Rawlings and his government moved to evacuate the cocoa, and it became a disaster. Ghana lost. Then he still wants to make sure to reshape the financial situation of Ghana. He advised everybody to go and put the 50 cedis in banks, which means the 50 cedis was a higher money at that time than the highest note. He told everybody to put the money at the bank. What was the rationale behind this? Maybe it will be reducing inflation. That's what people would think. So people were prepared to put their 50 cedis notes in the bank. Mind you, this was money that had been created by the people's work labor. Labor has a value. And this money had been created. But he said everybody should put it at the bank. Would they be compensated later time? Nothing came out of this. Nobody received his money back. So the money was collected. This is a loss of wealth to the nation. But if it was given to the banks and the government used it, nobody knew what was used for. Nobody had an idea. Nobody had an idea about that money that was collected. And did inflation go down? We will see later on. After that, they advised the country that people who have money at the banks should not go and withdraw too much money. So you cannot go and withdraw so large money in the bank. So the money has to be deposited at the bank. You have to withdraw it bit by bit. So there was an economic plan to make sure that the money becomes valuable, probably to reduce inflation. And that was considered to be a great thing to the nation. But then as we move forward, Jerry John Rawlings, over time, devalued the cedi according to IMF and World Bank advice. They devalued the cedi, and in 10 years later, the value of the cedi went down to the point of 9,600 to $1. There was a time when Nukes president in Legon, after Kennedy was to transfer power to Cape Coast University, and I was one of the presidential candidates. At the platform at Ogwa Hall, I said this: it looks as if Ghana is going to IMF for loans. We got to be careful so that in the near future, we don't buy dollars in thousands with our currency. Though many of the students at that time may not or might not understand what I was talking about, but it did come true. So later on, some students met some other friends in Europe, and they said, "What is that guy?" And they said, "We don't know." So wasn't he the one who predicted that we're going to buy the dollar in thousands of our currency? And it has come true. Why? Was he a prophet? And somebody said, no, he was not a prophet. He loved to make predictions. And so he made a prediction, and it has come true that it is now 9,600 to $1. This massive devaluation is what we can say the wealth of Ghana has been buried. Your ancestral wealth has been buried. You don't have anything to dwell upon to make further investment for the nation. You don't have any money. The tree of wealth has been cut down by this massive devaluation. This scenario where two people during Hilary Liman's time had 10 million cedis at the bank. There is one considered to be patriotic and the other one considered unpatriotic. So the patriotic guy left his money in Ghana Commercial Bank, 10 million cedis, for an interest of 3%. The unpatriotic guy with 10 million cedis decided to go to the market during Hilary Liman's time. It was 5 to 1 on the black market. So he bought the dollar with his cedis, and as a result received $2 million. Then he deposited that money in a foreign account in another country with also 3% interest rate. Now unto Rawlings' time, when the city came up to 9,600, which is almost 10,000 to 1. With a 10,000 to 1, the one who put his money in Ghana now has $1,300 in equivalent. Because now the dollar is 10 to 1, 10,000 to 1. And so looking at his interest rate and his original 10 million, now he has $1,300. The guy who put his money at the bank in a foreign country still have $2 million and his interest of $60,000. Therefore, even looking at his interest alone, the overall money that the patriotic guy had, 3,300, will be 48 times that of the interest of the one we consider to be unpatriotic. So the unpatriotic guys still have $2,060,000. And the one considered to be patriotic now have 1,300. So if that is your ancestor, how will you dwell upon what he left for you to invest? 10 million, which would have been 2 million in Hillary Mines' time, is now 1,300. Do you see how your work has been buried? This is the foundation of Ghana's problems. Your work has been buried. You don't have anything. So if you bring the money into city terms, the patriotic individual will have 10,300,000 Ghana cedis. But the one you consider to be unpatriotic now will have about 20 billion, 600 million cedis. And if into dollars, he has 2,060,000, and you have 1,300. This is completely unacceptable. But it became accepted, because that is Ghana. Jerry John Rawlings and his people just bury the currency of Ghana. Ghana have no wealth. If you take 100 million of the currency and put toilet paper in a boat, go to another country, and you want to change your 10 million or your 100 million over there, nobody will change it for you. It becomes paper. But the toilet paper will have a value. Somebody will give you money for that. So Ghana currency has become ordinary paper in any foreign country. We do not have any wealth at this point. So we have to go to IMF and World Bank, get loans to start life afresh. Ghana is to start life afresh. Now Jerry John Rawlings and his people collected the 50 cedis note from Ghanaians. Why? Because it was too high money. But later time, unto 10 years of his time, they don't only have 50 cedi notes, they have 50 cedis note, 100 cedi note, 500 cedi note. They have 1,000 cedi notes. This is the evidence of 1,000 cedi notes. 1,000 cedi notes. Then, finally, they went ahead and have 10,000 cedi notes. These are the 10,000 city notes. 10,000 city notes. Still 10,000 city notes. So we have 10,000 city notes. Now finally, they came to have 20,000 city notes. And these 20,000 city notes, considering 9,600 or 10,000 to $1, these 20,000 city notes is equivalent to $2 in the United States. The dollar with Thomas Jefferson head on it. $2 for the 20,000 city notes. But the 50 city notes that Rawlings took from the people at that time will give you about $16. So if 20,000 city notes were to be in Hillary Mann's era, then this will give you 6,600. But under Jerry John Rawlings and his people, it was just $2. That shows you that Ghana has no money. Your finances have been weakened forever. You got to start life again. And starting life, you have to borrow money. You are borrowing currency, the dollar. But do you know the dollar is also a fiat money? The dollar is a fiat money, it's ordinary paper. Well, what makes the dollar exceptional is the trust people have in the dollar and policy being used to manipulate the dollar, make the dollar strong. And now you are going to borrow that money to start life afresh. The people that gave you that advice have killed your ancestral wealth. You have nothing. Ghana came to have nothing domestically. Your ancestors' work and the value of their work has been buried. That is what came out of Rawlings, Akwesi and other people. Akwesi being the finance minister, this came out of him by the advice given to them by IMF and World Bank. We do not have to blame them. IMF and World Bank is not a philanthropic organization. They are also there for business. They haven't asked you to come to them, but you want to wear the crown. And so you have your juju power, which is the spiritual power. You have the physical power. Then you need another power, which is weapons and money. And you go to them and they give it to you. When they give it to you, you promise them something. And this is what they promise. Devalue your currency. This advice was given to Afrifa, Kotoka, and Ankara. It was given to Professor Bougier. And now Jerry John Rawlings, that everybody had hoped, have thrown Ghana's domestic wealth into the gutter. Ghana has no wealth at this point. Now we got to move on to the next stage of the economy. What is it going to give to Ghanaians? From hereafter, he introduced rudimentary capitalism. This is where Jerry John Rawlings and his people deviated from Kwame Nkrumah's mixed economy. Kwame Nkrumah established the mixed economy for Ghanaians because that's where everyone in the world, especially the advanced countries, were heading towards. Even the United States from 1930s upwards started to move towards mixed economy. That's why they have a functional social security, a functional unemployment benefit, a functional welfare, a functional education up to 12th grade free. They have workers' compensation. So they have moved towards a little socialist agenda. So it is not 100% capitalism. And now we look at what has happened to Ghana. Ghana has moved completely away from Nkrumah's mixed economy to rudimentary capitalism. How did Rawlings and his people do that? Akosibosje is a Western train associated with Harvard University. Over there, they teach Keynesian economics. They will also teach classical economics. So, with the Keynesian economics, sometimes you also have knowledge about Marxist economy. So he surrounded himself with great intellectuals. Like Professor Tony Edo was a master of sociology at the University of Cape Coast, and he was a prominent individual in his government. And with Akosibosje, who has knowledge in Keynesian economics, but now introduce full capitalist approach, what we call the classical economics. With the classical economics, what happened in Ghana? That will be the next move of Jerry John Rawlings. They started to sell the shares of Ghana in various companies. Once I was listening to a YouTube video and I heard Sam Jonas was being interviewed. And if it is the same Sam Jonas I have known at Enyinam Shaft, Obuasi Gold Mines, Ashanti Gold Mines, he was a ship boss and later became a captain. He was a ship boss with people like ship boss Fianco, ship boss Opoku. And this guy eventually became a captain, if he is the very person who is now says Sam Jonas. He was a hard-working individual, very truthful, respectful, and honest. So when I listened to him, I knew he was speaking the truth. He said Ghana used to have 55% in the Ashanti gold fields. That is throughout the Champions time all the way to Hilary May. Ghana had 55% shares in Ashanti gold fields. But the government took these shares to New York State Stock Exchange. At the New York Stock Exchange, they sold the shares of Ghana. By selling the shares of Ghana, Ghana came to have 10% shares in the company. But when there was a merger between Ashanti Goldfields and South African company, Ghana came to have no shares in the company. And then the individual Ghanaians who had shares in the company will not even amount to 2%, which means Ghana have no shares at all. But people always say, we got gold, we got diamond, we got timber, we got oil. Why is Ghana suffering? Your shares in various companies are being sold. Usually when you take one investment, you sell one investment, then you got to move to another investment. But what did they do with the money? Nobody knows. Then let's go on and see what happened in the country. They move on to embark on privatization. They started to privatize companies. And in the privatization process, many industries have to lose. First of all, they remove the subsidies on all import substitution industries, making the Ghanaian companies to compete with the foreign companies. But we all know that these foreign companies has come from mega economies. And within the mega economy, these companies have economy of scale, which means they can produce at a lower cost. They can minimize cost and maximize profit, so they can compete. So by removing the subsidies, make Ghanaian products more expensive to compete with foreign companies. And to make matters worse, they went ahead and reduced the tariff. Tariff is a tax imposed on imported goods. So now by reducing tariffs, makes the foreign product cheaper to domestic product. And when this happened and individual companies could not compete, now Ghana decided to sell some of these companies. And by selling these companies, sometimes the Ghanaians themselves do not have much money, because Ghana does not have that kind of financial system where you can use people's money to run a company. People don't buy shares. People sometimes even don't save how much more to buy shares. So they have little knowledge about that. So the Ghanaian entrepreneurs do not have that avenue. So foreign companies will come and buy what is being sold in Ghana. And sometimes they have the same factory overseas. So when they buy it, later on they can collapse it and then keep on exporting into the country. So Ghana lost a lot as the subsidies were reduced and the foreign companies start to pour in cheaper products. As a result of this, in the restaurant industry, we got pizza, we got Burger King, we got McDonald's, Chinese restaurants, all over in the country, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now just imagine if you're a newly graduate who want to go into poultry farming business. You are going to lose, you cannot compete with Kentucky Fried Chicken. So now Ghanaians have chicken every day to eat. But I know in the past, some Ghanaian family will eat chicken once or twice a year, Christmas and Easter. They eat organic chicken. Now the people from Bulgaria who have been selling organic chicken will find it difficult to compete with chicken from China, chicken from Kentucky Fried Chicken. That would be so difficult. All these restaurants, though it is good, it diversifies food, but this fast food which has come to Ghana, it has diversified food for everybody. But the point is, you don't know what you are eating. You have your organic food. And now you got to eat fast food. Fine, it is all over the world. Now, the next issue is these companies started to discredit Ghanaian food. The oil being used in Ghana were being discredited like palm oil, coconut oil. But these people did not promote olive oil, which is the most valuable oil to the West. But they promoted sunflower oil, corn oil, vegetable oil. So these are the oils introduced to you. And you know what? Sometimes some people are very curious about tropical food. Dr. Oz of United States of America, who once worked with Oprah Winfrey, is a typical example. Who wants to know the value in some food? He tested palm oil on cardiovascular disease, and it was discovered that palm nut oil did excellently well in cardiovascular diseases. Secondly, some other people tested coconut oil, and it was discovered that coconut oil does well on diabetes, in diabetes wounds. So they will go to the tropical areas, get coconut, and produce coconut oil, organic coconut oil. Do you know where they sell this oil in America and other places? They sell them in Whole Food stores. But you have been discredited. But it's being sold at Whole Food store, very expensive. Very expensive oil. So, your food has been discredited. Now, for example, moringa. It's so cheap in Ghana. Bitter leaves being eaten much by Nigerians and Ghanaians. Very cheap. When you go to the Western world, United States, Canada, and everywhere, these products have been packaged very well in organic food stores, and they're very expensive. So they have discredited your food. So you got to eat fast food nowadays. Kentucky Fried Chicken, French fry, Chinese fried rice. But you just imagine all these restaurants coming into Ghana. Where in the United States and where in Europe and where in China do we have Ghana chop bar? Even if you have one, who are those going to patronize? Okunkom chop bar, as we find in Aduejiri. Where can we find one in America or anywhere? And if you got it, the people who will patronize, your food has been discredited. Nobody will even eat your food. But your food is organic. But now you have people coming in with foreign food. They started to sell companies. The gear companies were sold. Ghana GNTC collapsed. They were even about to sell Ghana transport system. The government transport was even in the line of being sold, but somehow it had been maintained as a government owned. There was attempt also to sell a canary. So they were in the process of selling all this to the private company. So eventually, Ghana went on the road of rudimentary capitalism. Capitalism had been introduced into Ghana, full capitalism. Nobody is saying that this practice is not good, but then when the West give you an idea, please synthesize it and add your own. In that way, you will be successful. But if you take everything in total, it's working for them, but it's not working for you. Why so? To practice rudimentary capitalism has a philosophy and a policy with it. The policy is, take for instance, In the United States of America, during Barack Obama's time, the auto industries were going out of business. Some banks were going out of business. But Republicans campaign let Detroit go broke. But there is a way out of government to involve, because government involvement in the economy has started during the time of Alexander Hamilton with George Washington's government by introducing National Bank. And so Barack Obama bailed out the banks, bailed out the auto industries, and they are functioning. But I heard people like Osindium, often called Ejumawura. He loved work. That's why they gave him the name, Ejumawura. He and other people have banks, and they were about to collapse. The central bank should have been the bank to help maintain those banks to ensure the confidence of the people in the financial system. But I heard Nanado's government did nothing for all these banks to collapse. So the policy that is used to back companies did not exist in Ghana. How can you practice capitalism? Then there is a philosophy in building capitalism. Although, according to Karl Marx, capitalism was built by exploitation of man by man. Scientifically, that is true. But another way of explaining capitalism was by Max Weber, who said capitalism was built on Protestantic ethics. And what is Protestantic ethics? Live frugally and invest. Continue to live frugally and reinvest. Live frugally and continue to reinvest. In the long run, you build capital. Ghanaian entrepreneurs cannot do this. As soon as they get money, they need a home, they need a house, and then they need cars. And later on, you see that they got to go and marry. Big weddings, and they're enjoying themselves. Because they will tell you, if the coffin is too hot, so if I got a little money, I have to enjoy. So people are not building capital like the way the West people build capital. They live frugally and invest. Keep living frugally and reinvest. And that's why they build capitalism. But the Ghanaian man will say, allow me to enjoy myself. The same way in Nigeria. They will tell you, allow me to enjoy myself. So if a Nigerian man has money in America, about $10 million, he will take $1 million and go and build a mansion in a village so that they can go there twice a year to enjoy. Allow them to enjoy themselves. So here, therefore, the government has to involve in investing in multinational companies. And if the government is not doing that, if the government is not leading the society, eventually the society will collapse. Jerry John Rawlings' government had moved Ghana into rudimentary capitalism. And operating this is very difficult for Ghanaians. But when we say mixed economy, if we don't understand mixed economy, let's ask the Chinese. The Chinese use mixed economy and within a short time have been able to catch up with the big powers of the world today. So, you don't use 100% capitalism. They were given the idea of capitalism, but they added their own. They added their own and became successful. Ghana started a journey with India, with Pakistan, with Korea, with Taiwan, and all these countries have left Ghana behind. Why? because they apply capitalism with some kind of sense, adding element of socialism to a mixed economy. And I think when Nkrumah took over power, he foresaw that most countries are heading towards mixed economy. And he started Ghana on that line. But then Jerry John Rawlings and his people came and pulled Ghana out of this economic system and applied pure capitalism. So on pure capitalism, what the government does is to collect taxes and tariffs to run the nation. But in Africa, or in most developing world, we have to depend on the government. Now, looking at the example that Rawlings have moved Ghana into, do you think Ghana today has an economic model for Africans to emulate? Is Ghana's economic model something for the developing world to emulate? That is not true at this point. Ghana's economy had gone down completely. So therefore, Jerry John Rawlings and his people buried the wealth of Ghana. Ghana does not have any wealth. Then they moved Ghana into pure capitalism. And so Ghana has nothing. Now Ghanaians are consumers and not producers to the highest level. So therefore, Jerry John Rawlings laid a foundation that will be difficult for the future generation who will come so as to improve or to change the trend of affairs for Ghana. This is a very difficult situation. Is mixed economy the best way or pure capitalism? This is the difference between Nkrumah and Jerry John Rawlings. Are we taking the right path? Because there was a time Jerry John Rawlings on a YouTube video said this: you can Christianize me, but you don't have to Westernize me. So now you see Westernization 100% as dangerous. He has foreseen it, but he has already done it. He has nothing to talk about it. He came with his people. He trusts his people that they were knowledgeable. But this is what they got for Ghana. Now this is the road for Ghana. Is it going to be better for Ghana? Or Ghana has to go back? This is the issue. Is Ghana an example for Africans to emulate as they were emulating Ghana from 1960 during Nkrumah's time? Or this is what Africans have to emulate during Rawlings' time? This is a very difficult situation for Ghana to be out of this. Pure capitalism and devaluation. So therefore, devaluation and privatization have been the two major advice that IMF and World Bank always have for developing world. And Ghana is no exception. Took it in full terms, and now it's in danger. Is Ghana has set a good example for Africans during Rawlings' time, or Ghana set a good example during Nkrumah's time? This is the difference, economic difference, between Jerry John Rawlings' era and Nkrumah's era.